Thank you for checking out this complete broadcast from the Wrestling Epicenter archives. If you like what you hear, please hit the like button and the notifications bell. Also, consider subscribing. It really helps. And now, without any further ado, welcome to the show.
Welcome back to the Interactive Interview on the interactiveinterview.com. As always, courtesy of ProWrestling.com. James Walsh, Daniel Edler here with the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. Jimmy, how you doing?
Great, man. How you doing?
Doing great. It's great to have you on the program. It's been a long time coming.
Oh, super.
Excellent, excellent. So I hear you're in Orlando right now doing promotion for Total Nonstop Action?
Yeah, you better believe it. I was with Jeff and those guys, I guess, about during Christmas. Hulk and I, we were going to come in and do some work with them, a pay-per-view, but over in Japan, Hulk had got his knee injured.
Right.
And so after about 5 weeks with myself down with Jeff and those guys, I just decided to, maybe head on back to Tampa for a while, and Hulk and I did some independent projects working for him. And then Jeff called me back, and while I was down there with him, we had talked about trying to figure out how to get this show on maybe Fox or CBS or ABC or NBC or somebody where the whole world could see what a great bunch of guys and talent these guys really have down there and all the hard work they've been doing for a couple of years. So through a friend of mine named Sam Copeland, he worked a little bit of magic, and Jerry Jarrett and Jeff and Dixie Carter and Bob Carter, they all jumped on an airplane and went out to talk with the Fox people. They loved the product. Then we kind of made a few phone calls up to my friend Pam Waring up at Universal Studios, so that all got worked out. So it looks like the dream's going to come true. So all the millions and millions of wrestling fans that have been talking about seeing another wrestling show now are going to look like they're going to have the opportunity on the 4th, which is going to be a Friday, of June the 4th. It's going to debut at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Fridays, which will be about 81 million households around the country have an opportunity to see the show.
Wow. Well, that's great news for all wrestling fans all around the world, because the most thing that you hear is that they need an alternative, and looks like TNA will provide that for them now.
Well, Vince's show is great. I mean, they've got a great bunch of superstars, and really, if it hadn't been for Vince, and I guess myself and a ton of other people wouldn't be out still rocking and rolling in the wrestling business now. But what Jeff and them have brought to the table is a lot of young superstars mixed in with just a smidgen of some of the people from the past. But I think when you see the product, it's going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm. You just mentioned Hulk Hogan several times. Since the show will be in Florida, any chance of Hogan making the drive up?
Well, you know what? You never know when the Hulkster might pop up. He's right now busy with his daughter's career, Brooke Hogan. She just signed a record deal with Lou Pearlman, who was with NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, and so it's been a long time working really hard on that project for about a year, but it looks like it's getting ready to take off. So it's like Hulk always said, he's going to be her bodyguard.
I saw Hogan, he was on Jimmy Kimmel Live a couple months ago. What exactly, he didn't seem to be promoting anything. You have any idea why?
No. Well, what happened, Jimmy Kimmel had gave him a buzz about coming out and being part of the show, and, Hulk didn't mind doing it. He's a big fan of the show, so you're right, he didn't have a book to promote or anything else, but, he jumped on an airplane, went out there and co-hosted the show, and it seems like the response he got, the people really loved seeing the Hulkster on TV again.
Any chance of there actually being a Bound for Glory pay-per-view?
Well, you know what? Never say never on anything. It's just the timing might have been a little bit wrong back then, but what's so good about it now, no matter what kind of thing you put on pay-per-view or who you might use, at least you've got a really good chance of drawing some big money, because now the people will have a chance at 3 o'clock on every Friday, a chance to see a lot of great talent, a lot of great action, with it really out paying for it. And then that way, if they see something they like when they do have their pay-per-views, I think they'll have a bigger buy rate now.
You just mentioned a lot of things about music. I know you have had a lucrative career in music yourself. What exactly, what would you, let me try that question again.
Okay.
Who would you consider some of your musical influences?
Oh my gosh. Back probably before you were born, I was in a group called the Gentrys. We had a million-seller record on MGM Records back while we were in high school, back in 1964-65, when we were seniors in high school.
Wow. And
we were very lucky to be able to tour with Sonny and Cher and the Beach Boys. We signed with Dick Clark Promotions. We were on American Bandstand twice, Hullabaloo Shindig, Where the Action Is. I'm telling my age now by all the shows that were on back then. But I had about an 8 or 9 year run with the Gentrys, and we had a few hits. Keep on Dancing was our million seller. And then later on, after our original group broke up, I put a new group together, and we went on the Sun label, which had formerly a lot of superstars, Elvis Presley, of course, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, Johnny Cash, but it was kind of a revamped label of the new Sun era, and Sam Phillips' son, produced us. And we did a lot of stuff with Neil Young, but one of my influences, I think, was Neil Young. A lot of the black groups back in Memphis back then, Sam and Dave, and all the groups like that. Al Green. I was really impressed with all those guys. But we had a lot of fun doing our music. Of course, when I went to the WWF at the particular time, we had Eat Your Heart Out, Rick Springfield. I wrote all of Honky Tonk Man's songs and the Road Warriors and so on and so on. And then, of course, WCW, we did the Hulk song American Made and Buff Bagwell and the Wolfpack song for Nash Hall and so many of those songs, which, by the way, Vince owns all that stuff now, too, because, when WCW was bought out by Vince, all of the writing material and all the tapes went to him.
Yep. Are you still involved in music?
Well, yeah, matter of fact, we're working on a brand new Gentry album right now, kind of Jimmy Hart and the Gentry's, kind of a remake of some of our old songs, and so I've got a little record deal in the progress right now. And down the line, we might do a few songs for Jeff and those guys, too. They have a couple of really good songwriters that write the stuff for them now, a couple of young kids that do a really, really good job. But if called on, me and my songwriting partner will jump to the occasion really quick.
How did you go
As a matter of fact, too, one other thing, too, on the new Acclaim video coming out, the new video, we did all the music for that, and also we did all the music on Legend 2, which was out last year.
Right, and actually, Jake Roberts is in the new one, and we helped him get that spot, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, and question is, how did the career in music end up to a career in wrestling?
Well, Jerry Lawler and I went to the same school together, Treadwell High School, and Jerry was in wrestling, of course, and I went and did music, and one day, when I was over at Sun Recording Studio cutting one of our albums, we had a phone call from Jerry Lawler, and he said, Jimmy, I know that you've, with the Gentry's, had a $1 million record, went to school together, but I'm fixing to put a wrestling album out, and I'd love for you to sing with me on it. So I jumped at the chance, being a big wrestling fan, and that kind of got Jerry and I connected together. And then after a couple of years, I joined professional wrestling with Jerry down in Memphis, started doing some local promotion with him, of course, and then all of a sudden that led to me doing some videos with those guys and a little bit of music back in the early days when we did all the Andy Kaufman stuff.
Right.
And then, of course, after that, when I went to New York, Vince knew my background, and we were cutting the first wrestling album back then with Cyndi Lauper. And one thing led to another, so that just kind of kicked everything off where I started doing a lot of the music up for WWF back then.
Well, you just mentioned it. How about Andy Kaufman? What was it like working with him?
Oh, he was awesome. I mean, he was the real deal. He loved professional wrestling so much. I spent so much time with him, managing him, of course, and our program was really against Jerry Lawler, but, he was great. We had our own separate little dressing room there, and it wasn't a Monday night that went by that he didn't always ask me about Elvis and a lot of the wrestlers that I had managed to run up down the road with, and he was just a major, major, major wrestling fan, and he really loved the wrestling business so much.
How did you end up deciding to go to Vince and WWF?
Well, what happened is, I've been in Memphis about 5 years, and a guy named Hillbilly Jim, we had him as Harley Davidson in Memphis, but Hillbilly had left to go up there, and we were friends, and one day I was up in Nashville, Tennessee, managing Plowboy Frazier. When he went to New York, he was Uncle Elmer, and Eddie Gilbert. And I called home, and when I'd called home, they said that I had a phone call from a Vince McMahon. And I thought, oh, man, you got to be kidding me. Vince McMahon's not calling me, because we knew he was putting together all this talent from all the different territories then. But who would ever think he'd call Jimmy Hart? So then about a week later, I didn't call the number, and I had a phone call from a man by the name of George Scott. So at the time, George Scott was his booker at the time, but I never called back either. So I happened to be home about a week or two later, and while I was there, Hillbilly called me and said, Jimmy, how you doing? I said, okay, pretty good. Everything's cool. And I told him about the phone call, and he said, I know they've been watching your tapes up here. He said, you know what, let me talk to Howard Finkel to see if it's true. About 5 minutes later, buddy, he called me and said, Jimmy, it's true. They want you up in New York. He said, sit by the phone. Vince McMahon's going to call you. So about 5 minutes later, Vince called. I was on a plane 2 days later up in New York, signed a contract with him, came back down to Memphis, and ran the TV show because Lawler and Jerry Jarrett were out of the city then. So I ran the show, turned my notice in, and the next thing I knew, baby, I was in New York City.
Absolutely. And when you got there was a lot of managers going around at that time. There was Freddie Blassie and Captain Lou and Bobby Heenan and a bunch of others. Do you feel that the lack of a male manager in today's wrestling world is a missing art?
Well, I don't know. I know that I don't get a chance to watch Vince's show very much, but I think they've got, I know Paul Lee's kind of the, doing some kind of a CEO deal up there, but he's kind of like a manager when he's at ringside. And I know also they have Teddy Long. He's at ringside as a manager. And so I just think there's, I think there's a right place and wrong place for female and male managers. To me, I've always said if you've got a guy in the ring that's really a tremendous worker and talker, you really don't need a manager or a valet with them because it kind of takes away from them. But I think a manager comes in handy if you can, if you're colorful and don't try to step on your guy and know your role. I think there's always a good place for a male and female wrestling manager.
What were your early impressions of Jim Cornette?
Oh, I love Jim. Jim used to take the pictures for us. He was our picture taker up in Louisville. His mom was up there, and she worked with Teenie Jarrett, Jerry Jarrett's mother, and Jeff Jarrett's grandmother at the time. She ran the Louisville and Nashville towns. Well, Jimmy Cornette's mother worked with her, and Jimmy jumped on board taking pictures and everything with us. So when they decided to put him in, play like he was kind of a little rich kid, I gave him his first knee pads and elbow pads and everything, but I always liked Jimmy.
Got an interesting question coming in from somebody on the message boards, and this is not, it's actually not coming along in chronological order, but he was going through his old tapes in Memphis and saw a match of you wearing a chicken suit. Could you explain this to him?
Yeah, that's with Jesse the Body Ventura. I used to manage Jesse down there, and I think what happened, we had a match against the San Diego Chicken. And Jesse, I think it might have been Lawler and the San Diego Chicken against me and Jesse. And the loser of the fall had to wear the chicken suit. So, of course, I guess the chicken suit was too little for Jesse and too small for Lawler. So guess who was the lucky one to wear the chicken outfit? So that was Jimmy Hart. We lost the match. I had to wear the chicken suit around town for a week. But, I always found out that the more things that were done to you, the more things that stood out. A lot of people never like to be tarred and feathered or painted or anything, but I always felt like with my character, those things that happened to me made me stand out a lot more.
Absolutely, absolutely. In the WWF, you managed the Hart Foundation. Did you ever think Bret Hart would catch on as much as he did?
You know what? Truthfully, I knew it from the beginning because Bret had something special. He was really different. In the ring, he was tremendous, but he was a deep thinker. He would always really... when we'd talk about our matches and everything else, we just didn't go into a room and go, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this, and here we go. He always liked to think things out, and we all had our spots that we did, and we were all colorful, wore the pink and black and everything else, but, he was a lot different. He always psychologically tried to think the matches out. Why did we do this? Why did we do that?
Right.
But he always had something special. Even when we were the heels, me, Neidhart, and him, the girls always loved Bret. They'd always scream over him. And so you could always tell that was going to be a major change in the Hart Foundation, where Anvil and I still stayed as heels off and on, but Bret always became a real popular babyface.
Memories of winning the Battle Royal in MSG.
Oh, gosh. Hey, matter of fact, I think they still owe me that $50,000 for winning that, too. Well, that was unbelievable because that night we got to the Garden and everybody was gathered in the back on who was going to, I can't believe you remember that, who was going to win the Battle Royal, and everybody thought it was going to be Junkyard Dog or whatever. Vince came in and said, who's going to win it tonight? Jimmy Hart. But the way we did it, it really didn't hurt anybody because I kind of hid underneath the ring as well as I can recall, and at the very end of it, I think I went up and pushed Junkyard or somebody over the top and won the $50,000 Battle Royal.
Was there any competition between all the managers in WWF?
No, not really, because, everybody had a different character, and we all got to do our own interviews. Where it's different now, somebody writes your scripts for you, but I think that's what really made everybody who you are. I got to dress the way I wanted to dress. Vince always, Bobby was tremendous, There'll never be another Bobby Heenan. I mean, he was so clever and witty on the commentary and stuff like that, and great bumper, and just, he was tremendous. Mr. Fuji was very different. Classy Freddie Blassie, Lou Albano. But when I came along, I was kind of from the South, and I liked to go and stay at ringside because a lot of the managers back then would just go to the ring, take the jackets, and go to the back, And I remember when I was first up there, Mr. Fuji and, Lou Albano and Fred Blassie called me in the back and said, Jimmy, what do you want to stay at ringside for? we're going to get the same amount of money. And I said, no, I said, in Memphis, that's what I always did, and I love doing that. I love taking bumps from my guys, and plus a good manager can always cover up. I can always be the one who's clumsy or whatever that throws the megaphone in the ring and gets caught by the other team, and we get disqualified. So it's a way to save your men, too, without them just getting beat 1, 2, 3 each and every week, But really, there was no competition. Everybody was different,
Question coming in from Rick Clark from the forums. He'd like to know exactly who came up with the idea of using the megaphone?
Well, Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon went over to Japan, and while they were over there, him and George Scott, one day Vince came back and handed me a box, and then it was the megaphone. So I painted it up, made it colorful, but they just said, hey, this is going to be what you're going to use from now on. So it was really Vince McMahon. I love to take credit for it, but Vince brought it back from Japan.
When you got physically involved in wrestling, you said you like to take bumps and do all the things that some other guys did not want to do. Did you ever suffer any serious injuries?
Oh, my gosh, in Memphis, a broke jaw. Jerry broke my jaw one time. I had a broke jaw. Of course, numerous stitches in your head, but broke hand, broke jaw. Torn calf muscle. I mean, it was just so much because the people really believed in what we did back then. I think my house suffered more than anything back then because with the feud with Jerry Lawler, the big feud we had for a year, every week my mailbox would be torn down or my house would be toilet papered and it was just paint thrown on it, my car egged, flat tires, broken windshields. I mean, it was just crazy.
One of the guys that your career interlaces with very heavily is Hulk Hogan. But how did you actually meet Hulk?
Well, I really met Hulk in Memphis originally. They were down there, him and Brutus, as the Boulder Brothers. So I met him a little bit down there with that. And then when Jerry and I had the big feud we had for a year, we were bringing different people. We'd bring Terry Funk in to fight Lawler, then Dory Funk, the Briscoe brothers. The list went on. And one time we had they got Hulk to come in, so I managed Hulk down there. We became friends. And then about 3 years later, Vince called me to go to New York, and that's when I kind of teamed up with him again. He was a babyface, of course, and I was a heel, but I think what really made us close was Bobby Heenan was managing Ric Flair, and Hulk had a program for about 2 weeks for Ric Flair where Bobby was injured and couldn't go, so Hulk asked me, did I mind managing Ric Flair for those 2 weeks, and of course, oh my God, I've always loved Ric Flair. What unbelievable. When you talk about a legend, he definitely is a legend. So I was thrilled to do that, and I think by me standing up to the table, it made Hulk realize that, hey, Jimmy Hart, whether he's hurt, whether he's sick or anything, he's going to be there for the wrestling. And then Hulk and I, about a few years later after that, he came to me about switching babyface with Brutus and doing something with Brutus and managing Brutus and him as the Megamaniacs. And so I did that. And after that was over, Hulk asked me, he was going to do some movies and a show called Thunder in Paradise, and asked if I'd like to come to work for him. And he asked, what did I make last year? I told him, and he said, I'll give you a cashier's check tomorrow. So I went and talked to Vince and just kind of took a leave of absence, and it's lasted about 10 years. A long leave of absence, right?
Well, absolutely.
But you know what? I had the biggest thrill of my life. I went back to WrestleMania this past year and inducted Greg Valentine into the Hall of Fame, and Vince was so great. They let me put my own jacket together with WrestleMania on the back of my tuxedo jacket and everything else, and it was just great seeing Linda McMahon and Vince and everybody. They were just really wonderful toward me.
Wow. Backstage at the WWF at that point, were you doing anything music-wise and all that? Before I left up there, we did a lot of the songs, honky tonk, all of honky tonk stuff, the Mountie song, the Rougeau Brothers, the Rockers. Matter of fact, they still play one of the songs now that my partner and I wrote, which is "Sexy Boy" by Shawn Michaels. And Randy and Liz's wedding song when they got married, that's a song that we wrote. And also, I think when Stephanie and Triple H had their wedding vows, they played the same song. Somebody said. Wow. All right. How did you end up deciding to go to WCW? Was it because of Hogan or?
No. What happened is Hulk and I had left to do Thunder in Paradise, and we were on the set of Thunder in Paradise, and WCW was cutting all the shows with Eric Bischoff and those guys over at Disney, and that's where we were shooting the TV series. And Eric came by one day and said, "Look, we're fixing to make a major move. We're right on the borderline. We're just there. Our house shows. We're not doing a lot of house shows, not bringing a lot of money in, and we've got a chance to turn the corner." So he said, "Hulk, if I go to Ted Turner and see about getting you on, can we kind of spin the wheel, make the deal?" So Hulk said, "Well, if I go, I got to bring Jimmy Hart." And Eric says, "Oh my God, we'd love to have Jimmy." So that's how it all took place. We were doing Thunder, and then working on weekends with WCW, and then when Thunder ended, we were able to go in there full time, and the rest was history.
Bobby Heenan was on our show. Actually, he was the last interview up, and he did pretty much nothing but bash WCW for his time there. I know he had bad experiences. And one of the questions that we asked him, we'll pose to you now. How did WCW compare to the WWF?
Well, here's the thing. WWF, there's only one WWF. You know, they were so professional. I mean, the production's the best production. They've got some of the most talented people up there. And no matter, here's the thing about Vince, no matter who comes and who goes for Vince McMahon, he creates stars. No matter how tough it is, it takes him a little time sometimes, but he creates stars. And, of course, a lot of the people leave off and on, you know, whether they have so much money they don't care about working anymore, or injuries or whatever, or you know, that's just the way life is. You know, nothing lasts forever. But what happened with WCW, I think what happened when the guys came over to book WCW, we were kind of a cookie cutter of WCW, and it's like anything else. It's like disco music. When disco came out, there was like Donna Summer and the Village People. They were selling millions of records, but then every record company went, oh my God, we need a disco group. Well, they flooded the market. Bee Gees went disco. I mean, they had Casey and the Sunshine Band. Everybody had a disco group. Everything on the radio was disco, disco, disco. Then after a while, it just kind of burnt everybody out, was tired of hearing it. The same thing happened with us. All we did was a copy of what Vince had done the year before. So the wrestling fans that watched us when we were different, all of a sudden they were starting to see the same angles just with different people that Vince had done, like I said, a year before. So we were on the Titanic, and I knew the ending of the Titanic. You hit the iceberg, so I put on a life preserver and jumped off right before we hit. But it's really a shame because, you know, we were kind of different. You know, we were more family-oriented, a little bit cleaner and everything else, and so we had our own audience. And so, but, you know, that life goes on, so that's what I'm saying now with Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. Now they've got a chance to take up where WCW left off. Family entertainment, got a lot of young stars. I'm sure from time to time Jeff might bring in a Sting or some people like that to do some things with, but, you know, we're going to be using a 6-sided ring that's been used over in Mexico, of course, so we're at Universal Studios, and, you know, I've got to say this. This is what's so funny.
What's that?
And it's just my observation. You know, I'm looking at the Internet and listening to people over the last year. People want to see an alternative. We want to see a different wrestling show. They love Vince, but they want to see something else, too, you know, because wrestling fans will watch both shows. Right. But all of a sudden, as soon as you do that, then everybody starts going, well, let me tell you why it won't work. Well, and I sit there and go, wait a minute. You want to see a wrestling show, but all of a sudden then you start naming 15 reasons why you think it won't work. Right. And I just thought that is so crazy because to me, this show is like an infomercial. The reason infomercials work, look at Tony Little. He has a Gazelle. Why is he a multi-millionaire? Because people watch the infomercials. Right. The Gitsu knives. All of these infomercials are so popular. Well, it's the same thing with wrestling. You put it up there, people have a chance to watch it or not watch it. So I just think that the same fans that watch Vince's show they'll have a chance to watch this show too. And I think eventually the ratings will be good, and I think eventually Fox will move us up to, instead of being on at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoons for the school kids, you know, summer's coming, so they wanted to move us to a summer time. And also, you look at that Jason Seacrest. I mean, is his name Jason something? Ryan Seacrest, yes. He's got a 3 o'clock show, so it must be a good slot because they're doing good ratings too. So, you know, we're going to give it a chance. At Universal, it's going to be great because you've got all walks of people here, you know, from Germany and Australia and Canada, and just so it's going to be a good variety.
Is it part of the park attraction, or do you have to get tickets separately?
No, let me tell you, this is awesome. It's part of the attraction. So when you get in there, we're going to film at 7 o'clock on Thursday night, so you get in there free. And also, if you're not on the park, at 6 o'clock, it's free parking, so you can come over and they'll put you right to the gate also. So it's not like a paid attraction, so it gives everybody a chance to come into the park and see this for free and have a great time.
Plus, it also guarantees that there'll be a lot of fans there, and you'll have a live crowd.
Absolutely, it's going to be a lively crowd. It's going to be a fun crowd. It's just going to be pretty cool, you know. But just being able to get another wrestling show on is going to be awesome. And like I said, Vince has got a great show. But I really think Dixie Carter and Bob Carter, the ones that are really behind this whole thing, and have been behind it for 2 years. And you know, it's been on pay-per-view for 2 years. And you know, and I know that if you're on pay-per-view every week and you don't have any other access of letting the people know what a great product you got, right. Well, common sense tells you you're probably going to have the same buy rates every week.
Right.
So now it's going to give a chance for all the people on Fridays at 3 o'clock to see the wrestling. If it's something they like, then they can buy the pay-per-view.
Absolutely, absolutely. Going back to WCW, though, soon after you and Hogan appeared on WCW TV, a Hulk Rules CD came out. How influential were you in the release of that album?
Well, you know what happened? We went over to, we were cutting some stuff. I did a lot of the music for WCW.
Right.
And so while we were cutting that, a friend of mine with RCA called me named Michael Mansky. And he said, Jimmy, have you ever thought about doing an album on Hulk? And I said, I'd love to, because, Hulk sings and he plays bass and everything else. So we went over, and I had to cut this song American Made because we couldn't use Eye of the Tiger anyhow.
Right.
So I cut a song kind of the same theme, American Made. So we were doing that. So while we're in the studio, we just went ahead and cut a whole Hulk album. And all of a sudden, we got a deal here in the States with Selective Hit Records, and we were doing a little press conference over in Germany and places like that. So we got a record deal over in Germany, and people don't know this, but Simon Cowell, the guy that's on American Idol,
right.
We met with him over there, and he cut a single record on Hulk and myself by a group called Green Jelly. It was called Leader of the Pack. So he flew over to California, cut the video on us and everything. So I thought that was pretty ironic.
Wow. And you just mentioned Ryan Seacrest. You guys are staked in American Idol. Question for you on about the Giant. You turned heel and managed the Giant. Many said that they thought he would be the second coming of Andre. Did you think that would be the case?
Well, you know what? I'll tell you a quick story on that, too. While in Tampa one day, I got a picture in the mail, and it was this big guy. His name was Paul White, and they called him the, gosh, let me think, not a lumberjack, like Paul Bunyan's what they called him. And so, but his name was Paul White. So I kept the picture, and we went over to promote Thunder in Paradise.
Right.
While we're over there, I showed Huck the picture. He said, you ought to keep that, because if when we come back we'll show it to Eric, maybe we can bring this guy in. So Huck and I happened to be doing a charity basketball game with Danny Bonaducci in Chicago when he was the guy on the Partridge Family,
right.
when he was there doing the radio job there. We came in, I called Paul. Paul came to the building. I introduced him to Huck. He did all these crazy voices. He's a great entertainer. He played basketball against us, so Huck got him signed up with Eric, and of course the rest was history.
What is your opinion on Hulk Hogan turning heel and joining the NWO? Did you think it would work?
Well, I kind of realized something was going to happen, because when I was managing Huck, every night we'd go to the ring, we were starting to get more and more and more boos. So at first they said, well, I think the reason he's getting a lot of boos is because Jimmy Hart's been a heel his whole life,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we did the switch on Hulk, with me and the Giant and everybody else, and Kevin Sullivan turning on Hulk. Mm-hmm. And then Hulk still got a few boos, so that's when they came up with the idea to switch him and come up with the NWO.
Wow. Sum up for me the first family angle. Did you think it got over as well as it probably could have or should have?
Well, what happened in Memphis, the first family was over tremendously,
right.
But when we tried to start it up there, we never had the TV time that we really needed, because, see, what happened, Eric gave me the Saturday night show.
Right.
But I really couldn't do a lot of things on it, because I couldn't interfere with the show that was on Monday or Thursday. So what happened, I kind of created my own stars. I took people they wasn't using. I took Evan Courageous, Shannon Moore, and Shane Helms, and turned them into a group called 3 Count.
Right.
And because they were about to be let go, they had Canyon, who was a friend of theirs, came to me and said, Jimmy, Eric said, we can't get something for these kids, because Eric at the time had hired a bunch of little cruiserweights, but I think the show that he was going to do something with fell apart, so he was stuck with all these kids like that. Well, I thought they were great. I needed some people for the Saturday show, so I came up with a little thing called 3 Count.
Right. Cut
the little music thing on them, kind of a rip-off of NSYNC Backstreet Boys, but
right.
And then I didn't have anybody for them to fight, so I took Jamie Noble and a couple of the other kids and turned them into the Young Dragons. So I got both names copyrighted, and at the time, Kevin Sullivan had just been let go for a while for whatever reason, I don't know, but they had replaced him with Kevin Nash for a couple of weeks as kind of in charge of booking. So I went to Kevin Nash and I said, Kevin, they're going to let these kids go. I'm doing a Saturday night show and our ratings are pretty good. Can I take these kids and use them? He said, go for it. So I played in the song. So really, if it hadn't been for Kevin Nash giving me the opportunity to do this with these kids, so we cut a video on them, cut the music on them. I bought the karate outfits for the young braggers. As a matter of fact, I think WCW still owes me the money for them. Did some vignettes on them, and all of a sudden, man, we started pushing them. They started getting over, and then they started using them on the Monday night show and the Thursday night show.
What were your early impressions of Vince Russo?
Well, you know what? I didn't know really much about him. I knew he was the booker up there for those guys. I knew his claim to fame was really more of the edgy type stuff, you know, the tits and ass, giving the finger, the cussing, you know, and all that stuff like that.
Right.
And I didn't know if that's what we were going to do or not, but I soon found out that we tried to do a lot of that, and I think that's what originally hurt what we were doing, you know, not blaming anything on him in particular. You know, it's just the way it was set up down there. You know, we had people that really overlooked what we did. We really couldn't go out and use profanity and do some of the edgier type things. And I think that was what he excelled in, was all the eye candy and doing the things that he did. You know, I think he's the one that kind of brought all the cameras in the dressing room and kind of exposed the wrestling business, you know,
right.
A little bit more than maybe what it should have been. And went more with the black colors, and instead of everybody going by your stage name, Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart or Hulk Hogan, he'd go by Terry Bollea and those type things. So I think that worked for Vince, but it really never really worked for us.
What the memories of hardcore matches with Norman Smiley that were booked by Vince Russo?
Well, you know what happened? I was kind of stuck in the middle of doing the stuff on that, and I really enjoyed doing it because we were kind of into that already. But we did some hardcore things with it, and then and I enjoyed it. And the last thing I think I did up there with that was do a deal where I had wore the 10-man outfit for that. Well, I mean, that was the hardest match I've ever been in my life because, man, you couldn't breathe, you couldn't move, and it was like, but you know, I enjoyed it. You know, whatever they wanted me to do, I was always there. I worked behind the scenes with them some, and you know, helped during the matches and everything else. But like I said before, it just you know, for some reason, bringing that style into us really never worked because I think it was just kind of a copy of what Vince and those guys were doing up there, and we were kind of a weak version of that. And like I said, I'm not blaming him or blaming anybody particularly. I think it's just the way a lot of the top stars really in their contracts had a lot of creative control. And on anything, no matter if it was Vince booking or Kevin Sullivan or Kevin Nash or whoever, when you sit down there all week with 4 or 5 people on a panel and you put what you think really is good together, and the night of the show, our people went to some of the top people and they go, well, I don't like this, let's change this, and this. And then we started scrambling 30 minutes before the show trying to put a show together, and that's why a lot of time the camera work was bad and some of the interviews wasn't as good as they were because it was almost like rearranging a whole show the day of the show, you know?
Right.
And it's hard like that, you know. No matter if you're a football coach or anything, that's why it takes all week to put a great game plan together.
Absolutely. In 2000, you had a feud with Lex Luger and Elizabeth when you were managing Hogan again. I guess the only question I can ask you about that is, any thoughts and memories of Elizabeth?
Well, you know, when we put the XWF together, Janie Ingles working with us, and we tried to get her to come to the XWF. We were just going to use her, not as a manager, but somebody that was cute that might be in the audience, and then we could throw a camera thing to her and go, and now here's Miss Elizabeth, you know, and let her do like a little small interview or something like that, and make it really professional. But she just didn't have really a chance to make it up at that time. She had some other things going on and wanted to do it, but we thought we had a great show. You know, we had Hulk and we had Tony Schiavone teaming up with Jerry Lawler as our commentators. We had Bobby Heenan managing Kurt Hennig, the late great Kurt Hennig.
Right.
And we had Jimmy Snook and his son. We had AJ Styles before anybody was even using him, Low Key before he was being used. Kid Cash was on there. A lot of the cruiserweights. We had Carly Colon, his son, on the show, and the Nasty Boys. I just thought we and being at Universal, I just thought we really had a home run. Right. I didn't realize that while we were putting it together, you know, Lawler got a call from WWF to go back, and so did Hulk, and so did Mean Gene, and so did Sable, and so did Piper, and all those guys. But it made me realize I really thought I was onto something, cutting the show with a lot of the stars from the past, present, and future together, and being at Universal. So that's why I really think this thing that Jeff is doing now is going to be a home run, because I realized back then it was going to be good for us. Now they've got the money backing, They've got a slot on TV, and the set. I've been over here all this week working on the set and everything else, and with the lights and stuff, and doing the publicity. And the set's going to be awesome, and it's just going to be a really, really good show. I think the people are really going to enjoy it.
It sounds like you guys are going for something different. I mean, you're even using a different style of ring, and it just seems like it's going to be a really something that they probably haven't seen before. So maybe there'll be.
Well, what I'm hoping that it says Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. Since it's only an hour show, I'm just hoping they don't do a lot of backstage stuff with cameras and everything else. I hope the guys can do some good, quick interviews to get their characters over, of course, but give the people for that 1 hour a lot of action, because after all, that's what the name of the show is, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, which is called Impact.
Right. At the end of WCW, you were doing things with Mancow, and you did the DJ Invitational and all those things. Whose idea was that, and did you enjoy working with those guys?
Well, the late, great Zane Breslov, who was our promoter, he used to promote for WWF and, of course, for WCW, and he always liked doing promotion when we went to the towns. You know, I'd always go do the radios and everything else, but Mancow loved being in the ring. So did Bubba the Love She was a former DJ on 98 Rock down in Tampa. So when I'd go in, I'd just do the DJ challenges with the guys, and we got a lot of extra radio time by doing that. And Mancow was such a big fan anyhow, so we added it to the pay-per-view. And to make a long story short, we had Sid Vicious. We shot an angle with Sid Vicious, Hulk, when I was managing Hulk. So Hulk was going to fight Sid. I was going to fight Mancow. That was the only two matches going in 2 weeks before the pay-per-view that was on the show.
Right.
And we had almost $290,000 advance. After they took Hulk off and were going to cancel the Mancow match with me, Zane threw a fit, and they kept it on there. I think the Hulk match changed, but then the house really only jumped to about $40,000 more. So it just shows you, by being with Mancow with all the publicity and Hulk with Sid, the people really like that.
Were you ever going to be part of WCW's plans for Eric Bischoff's plans for WCW in the future? Or did you jump off the ship or did you realize? I mean,
no. What happened was we were all with WCW until they sold it.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, they had on the internet. It was a big thing that Eric Bischoff and Fusion Media was going to buy WCW, and
this is what's weird. If they were going to buy it for $40 million or something like that, we couldn't understand why it was sold for $2 million.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm just saying, it's just that's the only thing that's still the craziest thing out there was how in the world did that take place? If you actually had a deal for 40, then how in the heck did it get sold for 2? I mean, nobody can understand that.
And I think a lot of people have still been scratching their heads for 3 years about that one.
I mean, that's pretty different.
Pretty different. After WCW closed, you started working with the XWF. You actually were part of the, I don't know, were you the owner or the promoter?
Well, here's what happened. Originally, Brian Knobs of the Nasty Boys and Greg Valentine had met a gentleman. They were friends with a guy named Kevin Harrington. Kevin Harrington is the guru for all the infomercials. Like I said, Gitsu Knives and, the Gazelles by Tony Little and so many things. And he had a thing called Reliant. Well, they had a friend named Walter Frank, who was out of Dallas, Texas, a multi-millionaire,
right,
who made tons of money in the phone business, and he was always a wrestling fan. So one thing led to another, and they were going to. So I guess originally the story went. Now I'm just telling you the story Knobs told me. Randy Savage was going to jump on board, but after Randy met with him, he wanted supposedly $5 million up front and creative control. Well, they said forget that. So. I just came back from Europe for doing a show over there, and Knobs called me and said, Jimmy, look, these people still want to do wrestling. Would you please jump on board with us and see about going down to talk to them? So Knobs, myself, and Greg Valentine got on a plane. We flew down to Miami. We met with this gentleman. A limousine picked us up at the airport and took us out, and we went on the biggest boat I've ever seen, a yacht, in my life. It was like as long as a half of a football field. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
We went on the boat, went out with them. I sat down, I told him about the dream I had about cutting at Universal Studios and putting a show together that had people from the past, present, and future, and a good, clean TV and having a good time. They loved the idea, so about 4 months later, we signed the contract. So I had a piece of it, so did Knobs, so did Greg, and Kevin Harrington, of course. But eventually, all I wanted to do was cut 1 hour pilot, that's all.
Right.
But while they were looking at the finances, they said, well, my God, if we're going to do that, why don't we just cut one day and cut 4 shows or 5 shows in a day? So then they came to me and said, look, if we're going to do one day, what's it cost for 2 days?
Right.
So we went ahead and cut 2 days, 5 shows a day. We lined it up pretty good to see how it was going to work, and that's how it really all took off. But what happened, though, we had everything edited, but while we were doing it and our people went door knocking, we really didn't have any of the talent. When our people went to meet with NBC and everybody else, they said, oh, my God, you've got Hulk. We had to say, well, we really don't. He just got signed. Well, you've got Mean Gene. No, we don't have Mean Gene either. Well, what about Jerry Lawler and Tony? Well, we got Tony, but Jerry just got signed. Well, what about Sable? She was gone. Piper was gone. So really, it would have been easier us to give them a list who we didn't have, you know.
Right.
So that's what really happened. We never really had a chance to get off out of the starting gates. But you know, that's the way life is sometimes. And like I said before, if it wasn't for Vince McMahon giving half the people, well, 99% of the people in wrestling a chance, I wouldn't be on the phone talking with you now. You know?
Right. Absolutely. And. All right, and I did order one of your, I ordered all 5 of them, the XWF pay-per-views that aired on pay-per-view.
Bless your heart.
Well, they were pretty good, but there's one phrase that I wanted to ask you about, and during your promo you said, as I always say, never trust a midget. Could you explain this catchphrase to me?
Well, you know what, I used to always say that, never trust a midget, and I used to say, they'd say, well, I said, because you never know where they've been, you know, and that was it. And I used to do that in Memphis years ago, because I remember one time, I was in Louisville Gardens coming out. We had a tag match, and I forget who I was. I don't know if I was tagging up with the Moondogs or somebody back then, or Jimmy Valiant. And I was coming to the back, and all of a sudden, bam, something hit me right in the butt. And I thought, what in the heck? Well, I thought somebody burnt me with a cigarette, because the crowds were really rough back then.
Right.
And I got in the back, and I looked back there, and somebody had made a homemade little pin dart. They took a needle and put some little shoestrings on the back of it and glued it, and I guess shot it out of a pea shooter or something. It hit me right in the butt. I went, oh. And so the police came back in the back, and they go, this is the guy who did it. It was a midget. So after that, I said, oh, my God, never trust a midget. So that's how I got the line.
Question from Rick Clark from the forums. He'd like to know, who was the strangest man you ever managed?
Oh, my gosh. There's been so many of them. Adrian Adonis, who was probably one of the greatest guys in the ring of all, but he was really, really different. Uncle Elmer, when I had him in Memphis as Plowboy Frazier,
right.
You know, he was kind of funny. But Knobs of the Nasty Boys, he was the most funniest, craziest, wildest guys you will ever meet in your life. I mean, do anything for you, but just always something going on with him and Sags all the time.
Another question coming in from Rick Clark. He heard that when Hulk Hogan first started, you were offered to be his business manager, and you turned it down, or Jerry Lawler told you to turn it down. Is that true? Or?
No. He's close to the story. Here's what happened. When I was doing the band work, before I'd play on Monday nights in the city sometime, I'd go by and catch the first hour of wrestling. So this is before I got into wrestling. So one night I was in the back watching through the curtains, and Jerry Lawler came up to me and goes, what do you think about that big guy in the ring? At the time, he was called, I think, Sterling Golden.
Right.
And I went, oh, my God, he's big. He's great. People love him. And Jerry Lawler, to this day, Lawler says he didn't say it, but he did. And he goes, I have a chance talking about Jerry. And he said, you know, he wanted me to manage him. I could get 15% of what he's going to make for the rest of his life. And I said, you are, aren't you? And he goes, heck no. He said, this guy will never make a dime in the wrestling business. And that's a true story, I'm telling you. So the guy almost got it halfway right, but it wasn't me, it was Lawler.
Wow.
And now we're going to do the word associations, in which you basically give us a 1 or 2 word answer, or if you want, you can go on a rant and give us a long story if you have one.
First name on the list is Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Greg the Hammer Valentine. If it hadn't been for Greg Valentine, I probably would have never lasted in the WWF. Greg was the first person I managed when I went up there. He showed me all the ropes. He drove me around everywhere we went, showed me where to stay. I learned so much from being with Greg. You know, he took his time in the ring. He painted a picture. He told a story. And, buddy, when that match was over, we'd almost have to fight our way back to the back every time. He was great.
Jerry Jarrett.
Jerry Jarrett. Oh, my gosh. Jerry Jarrett, my first boss. I've always said there's 4 people that were very instrumental to helping me in wrestling, even though they didn't know it. It's Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler, Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon, those four people were the most instrumental, and I really think, in shaping Jimmy Hart's career.
Dino Bravo?
Dino Bravo, oh my gosh. When I got put with Dino Bravo, I thought, oh my God, he's so dull. But after I was with him, I realized how good he really was. Vince let me dress him. I put the strongman cape on him and the fleur-de-lis belt and those armbands and made him like a strongman from a circus. But Dino went along with it, and he'd always thank me for making him colorful and everything. But I enjoyed being with him.
How about Honky Tonk Man?
Oh, I knew you were going. Honky Tonk Man, the greatest of all time. Honky, some of the best interviews. Really, 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 really a great guy. Sometimes he's misunderstood, but as far as exciting the fans and colorful, one of the most colorful people in wrestling still looks great. He knew what to do and when to do it. Never liked to plan a match. Always liked to work off the people, and really kind of an unsung hero. I think he really drew a lot of money up in New York and really didn't get a credit for it sometimes.
How about the late, great Kurt Hennig?
Oh, my gosh. Kurt was on the last show that I was going to have down in Tampa, Florida. It was called Jimmy Hart's Super All-Stars down there at the fair, and Kurt Hennig, I just talked to him the night before. He just flew in and talked to me, and he was going to go to the gym and work out and everything and come over early the next day and do some things with us, and just tremendous in the ring, funny, and just a great guy.
Gorilla Monsoon?
Oh, my gosh, Gorilla Monsoon. I just, on our Memphis show this past week, we just did a thing that Gorilla was doing some commentating on when I was out taking a lot of bumps and stuff. I mean, he put everybody over. He's the best.
How about Jim the Anvil Neidhart?
Jim the Anvil Neidhart, one of the craziest characters you will ever meet in your life. A quick story. We were in White Plains, New York. Before I managed the Rougeau brothers, they were baby faces. I was managing the Hart Foundation. There was a little referee in the back that had a toupee on. And he goes, look, whatever you guys do not touch this toupee. If you do, you'll be suspended and fined. Oh, God, we're not going to touch it. We were always late going to the ring because Brett was always slow going to the ring, had to wet his hair down and everything else. So we were always put on the main event. Chief Jay Strongbow, usually our agent, would always put us on at the end of the show because he knew we were going to be late anyhow. So Anvil was rushing real quick, and so when he wrapped the tape around his elbow pad, he was doing it real fast. Well, some of the tape got twisted, so some of the sticky part of the tape was on the outside of the elbow pad. Well, there's a spot that everybody always does where you get your opponent in the corner. The referee goes in face first, facing the guy to try to break it up. Well, when you do, you throw a shot over the top of the other guy's head, like a cheating move.
Right.
But when he did it, Neidhart's elbow pad, the tape stuck to the guy's wig, and when Neidhart pulled it back, the guy's toupee stuck to Neidhart's elbow pad. Oh, my God. The referee threw a fit. Brett fell off the ring. I went underneath the ring laughing. Both Rougeau brothers went to the back. We had to stop the whole match. It was all over with, and Vince had to pay our fine for us and everything, but Neidhart was just wild and crazy.
How about one? This is from my friend Derek Clancy. He always asked me to ask this one. How about Shawn Michaels?
Oh, my gosh, man. Tremendous worker. Gosh, so talented. Even on the music. When, Sexy Sherry did the song at first for him.
Right.
The Sexy Boy deal. And then when she left, I had to take him in one day. Vince said, I want him to sing it. Without any pre-notice or anything, we took him right over to the studio. I believe we were in Sacramento or somewhere. He jumped right in there, sang the song right off the bat, but tremendous, tremendous, tremendous work. A lot of great psychology.
Absolutely, absolutely. How about
Lex Luger?
I remember one time Jerry Jarrett told me a story. He said, Vince McMahon said, look, Lex doesn't drop kick. He doesn't jump off the top rope. He just does what he does. He said, can you see if you can go in there and talk with him and teach him any kind of psychology about this business, since we can get him to do anything else. Jerry Jarrett told me the story. He came back about 2 hours later, and he said, you know what? He's right. He said, I can't teach him anything. He said, he's made the most money in this business by not having to drop kick or jump off the top ropes or do anything. So why would he change now? And so I always remember that story. But Lex was good. He had a great look, and the people really responded to him.
How about Sid?
Sid?
Yes.
I remember one time Terry Funk said, Jimmy, you know who the highest paid softball player in America is? I said, who? He goes, Sid Vicious. I said, what? He goes, yeah. He said, big athlete, great athlete, but got hurt a lot, evidently. This is not coming from me. I remember Terry Funk told me this story, but he said, yeah, he's the highest paid softball player. But I always liked Sid. Sid had a great look to him.
Right. Second to last one is Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan, wow, what a good friend he's been to me. I'll tell you that right now. My mother was killed in a car wreck before I managed him on a show. We were in right there in St. Petersburg, and I just left that morning early to go do some promotion with Brian Pillman. This back when Brian was with the WCW.
Right.
And I was doing promotion all day, and I'll never forget it. That night at the show and everything, right before we went out for the main event, I was managing Hulk in a cage match against Paul White the Giant.
Right.
And the police officers came in the room, and they said, Jimmy Hart, can we talk to you? And I went, oh, sure. They took me in a room, and they said, look, we got some bad news for you. About 15 minutes ago, your mother was just killed in a car wreck down by your house.
Oh, my God.
Well, right off the bat, Hulk grabbed me, and he said, look, if you don't want to go to the ring tonight, I said, no, Hulk, I want to go. So, he's been a good friend. He's always been there. Somebody that hired me to work for him for a couple of years gave me a cashier's check out front. He didn't know if I was going to be sick or bogus or because I really didn't even know him all that well before we got together. But he's a great guy. So a lot of people don't understand sometimes what he has really done for the business and what Vince McMahon has done for the business. For him and Hart working together back then, both those guys together are great, and giving a lot of people opportunities.
You just threw him in there, and I'm just going to throw him in there for the second to last one instead. How about the loose cannon Brian Pillman?
Brian Pillman, gosh, I went to California and did Blondes Have More Fun, a song that we wrote for Brian, and
right.
But boy, he was on time doing the video every day, and he brought his wife up there, and she was in the video, and he was great. I mean, very, very talented, and just I really enjoyed him. I enjoyed being with him a little bit and having while we were in WCW.
The final one I have for you is Vince McMahon.
Vince McMahon. I'll never forget the phone call when he called me and invited me to come to New York, and I sat in front of him and I said, Vince, for as long as I work for you, I promise you I'll be loyal, I'll be on time, I'll be dependable, and whatever you ask me to do. And for the 9.5 years I was there, I never turned him down for an angle. I never turned him down on anything. He paid me well. He was just, he was great. And to me, when I got to see him up there for the Legends, I mean, he was, he always has a poker face,
Right.
No matter what kind of tragedy might be happening or bad things that might be happening in the WWF at the time, he always came to the building looking dressed, his hair in the right place. He would talk to the guys off and on in the back room, and, it's so funny. Tito Santana was telling a story, and he was right. He goes, Vince is the only guy that you could go in there complaining about money, about working, about anything else, but when you came out, he made you feel so good, you went right back to work again, And so I know Dusty Rhodes told me a story one time when we were all lined up, and he goes, I'm wearing this black and yellow polka dots, and I got Sapphire with me, and she doesn't know anything about wrestling. This is crazy. He goes, I got to get out of this. And he was stood by the door. We're in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and all of us were watching Dusty go in the room, and about 15 minutes later he came out, and he goes, well, he got me, and all Vince said to him, he said, Dusty, you're right. It's a bad idea. It's crazy. The whole thing is stupid, but there's only one wrestler in the world that can pull it off, and that's you, Dusty Rhodes. And so with that, what can you do when somebody tells you that, buddy? You're gonna make that thing work, But
Right.
Vince is, like I said, all the stuff he's going through, trying to run a company when your stars leave or get hurt. Oh my gosh, there's something going on 24 hours a day. But he was always great to me. His whole family was, and I can never say enough about him.
Excellent. And it's TNA Impact on Fox Sports Net at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Fridays. You can catch that then, and will be any chance of Jimmy Hart appearing on the show?
Well, you know what? You never know what might happen. I've still got a few of those old megaphones in the closet. I am going to have me a brand new total nonstop action suit made because I'll be doing a lot of the publicity for him. But, like I said, Dixie Carter and Bob Carter, her dad, they've really jumped into this not only financially, but they've really made a statement of wanting to see wrestling the way it was back on TV again. And my hat's off to these guys. I've been down there working with them off and on. They've got a great office, a great staff, and they really, really love this business. And you have to really have that sometimes more than just financial backing. You've got to have people not only put money into it, but also love it. So spin the wheel, make the deal, baby. They've given Jared a chance to really put this together, and hopefully it's going to work. And, you know, of course, if they ask me to manage, you know I'll be there.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we can't thank you enough for your time, and we wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors.
And remember, never trust a midget.
Yo, maniacs, this is Hulk Hogan, the greatest of all time, and you're listening to The Blaze, 1260 AM. So what you gonna do when Hulk Hogan in Blaze-a-mania runs wild on you?
Welcome back to the Interactive Interview on the interactiveinterview.com. Just led in by Medusa. Remember her?
Mm-hmm.
Led in,
Of course I remember. Yeah.
led in by Medusa and joined by the Mouth of the South. So we just got done with the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart.
Exactly. I mean, he was possibly the first person that I, on my own, called when we thought about doing the interactive interview. And, excuse me. And it's good to get him on the show finally. So glad he had everything he wanted, so he got cleared up for everything and all the questions that we had. And good to get such a good, nice, long interview up and online after being away for a week or so.
And the first thing I say to him is, he says, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm doing great, and this has been a long time in the long time coming." So, he knew that we were waiting for this one for a while, and I think he came through for us for the long wait.
Yeah. We really appreciate him giving us his time, and one of the best managers of all time. If not, riding up with Bobby Heenan, with the best manager poses.
Well, I think when you look at the classic WWF, they had so much going right for them, and I think the three top managers of that time are probably the three top managers of all time in a lot of people's minds, and that would be Elizabeth, because she introduced the attractive female aspect. That would be Bobby Heenan, because simply put, he was amazing, and the same goes for Jimmy Hart for the same reason.
And maybe sort of throw in a Jim Cornette here and there.
Yeah, Jim Cornette was up there. Who else did I like a lot? I can't remember. There's been a lot of. There's been a lot of them that I like. I think that they keep using what's this guy's name? What's the Canadian guy in TNA's name? Scott D'Amore. Scott D'Amore.
What? What did that come from? Scott D'Amore, yeah.
Scott D'Amore. That guy, the way they're using him now, is a classic manager role with Jerry Lynn. And, they keep doing these things, and eventually Jerry Lynn's going to get his hands on him. And when they do, it's going to be money. So they're really introducing the old school manager with that, and I think that could end up being pretty cool.
Yeah, I always liked the old school manager because, there was a climax to feud like it, but with putting your hands on the manager, it was what all the fans were sort of bringing and sort of aiming for the people in the feud to do. But then, of course, sometimes you've got to say, like when Tank Abbott hit Bob Ryder,
right?
For example, or as Bob said on the show, he kind of got Tank a little better than Tank got him, but and things like that. Having Mark Madden and people in feuds, it's like that. That's not. It hasn't got the same payoff to it as it would do with Bobby Heenan.
Yeah, well, yeah. Bob got the best of Tank with that shot, because you got him between the legs. But anybody that was listening to WCW Live at the time, Bob was in agony for a month afterwards because his back was hurting him from that. This is how. Well, Bob is not the most physically fit guy in the world, but he is definitely not the worst fit guy in the world. And when you get a guy like Tank Abbott, who's just a big, tough guy, he throws you around, it's going to hurt. Which is why I say I think it should be more believable. We'll get into that later about guys in matches where they get beaten up to no end. I think they should take a week off every now and again. If it's supposed to be believed that, for example, like Eddie Guerrero was beaten half to death and bleeding all over the place like a stuffed pig, maybe you should have a week off. But yeah, another one that was a good one was Mark Madden. Yeah, I love Mark, and I'd love to have him on the program, but I don't think that's going to happen.
No, it's all right.
His website seems to be gone, too. Used to be markmadden.com, and now it goes to like a blank screen.
I suppose he's probably got nothing really to talk about anymore.
I think he's now doing, unless I'm mistaken, I think he's doing the commentary for the Pittsburgh Penguins, the hockey team, but I could be wrong. I know he still does a radio show, and I know a couple of years ago he did something where he was mad at the vegetarians and people saying that you shouldn't eat meat, so he apparently ate a cow heart on the air. That's a little out there.
Yeah, slightly. I suppose, you know, big Markle, anything put in his face. That's a bit harsh, I suppose.
You don't like Mark Madden, do you?
No, I do actually. Surprisingly enough, I do actually quite like him. He's being really insulting for not that reason, really. Yeah, he always reminds me of that, you know, that director Michael Moore. Or the other way around, really. Michael Moore reminds me of Mark Madden.
I don't know why that one.
They never really know when to shut up. And
good point. Good point. They never really know when to shut up. Yeah, he just won that French award for that movie. Yeah, I don't even know what the hell the name of the award is.
But speaking of winning, and I tried to link it through, but it's not going to work. So I'm going to go off on that link completely. Moving on to the different completely. NWA TNA Impact.
Impact. NWA TNA Impact.
When's it starting? Because of course I'm in the UK, and it won't be signed to the wrestling channel over here yet. So unless our good friend Dave Corleone has Fox Sports, and I'm not asking for that because he obviously he sent through an IWA tape the other day, which I haven't looked at yet because it's at my family home, and I don't get to my family home till this Sunday.
I'll check that out.
My mum. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I got that IWA tape the other day. Very impressive. I must say, that company, you know, they don't always have the best matches. They don't always have the best characters. But you know, sometimes they have people there that you wouldn't expect to see. Example, Vampiro is over there now. You know, they're starting to put together some really good shows, and like I said before, the only thing that holds that company back from making it in the United States is the language barrier.
And is Dutch Mantel still on the cemetery?
No, it's now, I want to say Steven Weber. No, Steven Weber is the guy from my favorite show, Wings. No, Brian Weber. Brian Webster is his name. He used to be an announcer for like Indie Feds in New Jersey, and now he's doing that. It's Brian Webster and some other guy that I don't know. But the other guy's funny, but I can't remember his name. It's not Mario Savoldi either. They changed the announcers completely because, well, of course, Dutch is working now with NWA TNA.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. There'll be a bit of a conflict of interest and stuff, wouldn't it?
Yeah, a bit of a conflict.
Oh, well.
Yeah, well, TNA, you know, TNA has been chugging away for 2 years now, and on our show, Jeremy Borash last year said that a year from now he wanted to be on TV, and it looks to me like he's going to be on TV, so...
Yeah. And speaking of Jeremy Borash, you know he's got his own little column on the NWA TNA official website. Well, it's called Inside the whatever it's called. And it's got a little disclaimer at the top, basically saying that Jeremy Borash is a bit of twat, which I wouldn't say too far off, because in one of his most recent columns, I think either the last one or the one before, and can I just note that he no longer adds his email address to his comments, so I had to search for it and go through my contact list to find his email address. So what's the email?
TNABorash@AOL.com.
Yeah. And, so I looked through his columns, reading it, as you do. There's a lot of the news that I have to read. And he got to a bit where he mentioned Jake the Snake. And of course, Jake had a problem with animal cruelty or something. I didn't really keep reading through that story much because I didn't feel it was reported very well. And because it was reported so badly, mistaken facts and such, Mr. Borash made a bit of a prat of himself basically going by the incorrect information and just taking cheap digs at Jake. He then went on, after that I was going to email him anyway, just to say, since you're on the official website of the supposed #2 American promotion, I'd kind of advise them maybe not taking jabs at other people.
Right, not unless they're warranted. I mean, you don't take jabs at somebody. This is what I say. You don't take jabs on somebody unless they do something to you. Not personal ones, anyway.
Yeah. And so, he said that or whatever. And he then went on to make even more a fool of himself by, maybe make a fool of himself. He's pretty much insulting, I'd say, if I was Coco Beware, because he then went on to, talk about Coco Beware's bird,
Frankie.
And, on the lines of the Jake the Snake and Frankie's bird, Coco's bird, Frankie. And made a comment about the bird, which of course died in a house fire a couple of Christmases ago. So I thought, I added that comment into my email as well. And it wasn't the nicest email possible. I didn't word it particularly nicely, and it wasn't done on purpose. It wasn't done by accident. It just happened. And of course, a couple of weeks went by, no response. Okay, fair enough. I take it you've taken that and deleted it straight away. Doesn't want fan feedback anymore. He's taken his email address off the comments. But then I got an email back, and it was pretty well worked and heated as such from Mr. Bryce, basically calling me out for being a Jake Snake Roberts fan, of a washed-up old drunk, the kind of words he was using and stuff like that. Excuse me, I only defending him because he lives in the UK now. That's kind of general.
Does he know who you are?
I have no idea.
But how did he know you're in the UK?
He never responded. That was until he published his most recent column, I think. It could be the one before last. I read it a few weeks ago.
Okay.
In which he makes note of the Jake thing, kind of clarifies that, what he meant by his comments about Jake. Just saying, just touching on it as topical. And then goes on to rectify his mistake about Frankie as well. Kind of backpedaling on that and apologising there as well. So, I don't think he reads his now, I suppose, on the plus side. But on the negative side, he doesn't do any research into his comments, doesn't check his comments. And probably if I was Coco Beware, I'd be a little bit offended that someone, who's in the business of, in the way that Jeremy is, didn't even bother to keep up to date and check on the facts about someone who was a WWF legend as such in Coco. But,
I feel bad. First of all, I feel bad for Coco, because Coco's been in the business for a long time, and he's still hanging in there sometimes. You sometimes see his name pop up on indie shows, and it's good that he's working, but it's like what Bret Hart said about Jimmy Snuka. You see a 60-year-old guy in the ring, you don't know if to feel bad for him or to be impressed by him. But the bottom line is, you don't talk about people's personal life unless you have the information. People don't like Jake and they blast him for his past mistakes. Well, who among us haven't made mistakes? Yeah, Jake was an addict, and he admits that. But he does not say, nothing in the fact that he used to do drugs makes him open to be taking all this abuse from people in terms of what they say about him. And Jake, from what Jake said, he's cleaned up his life a bit. And that's commendable. Why still beat him up for his past when he's changed himself?
And, by admitting this, he's managed to get himself a lot more stick, where he could have just, kept it pretty on the down low. He didn't have to be on the mat.
And like Jake said, like he was the only one that was in the locker room getting high.
Exactly. And Jake is, of course, a former guest on the show. You can check out his interviews, huge interviews. It's thousands and thousands of downloads when it was first released. And that's available on the archive section of the website. It was like the most downloaded interview last year on the TNA. So, go and check it out if you haven't already. Some people.
Okay.
Moving back quickly to TNA, of course, as we were talking about before, I launched into my little, mini rant on Jeremy Boris. Just to finish the Jeremy Boris thing, he's running a co-produced mega show in Holland in July, which I hope to be attending. So, JB, watch out for me. You know, in a nice way, say hi and stuff. Not horribly for it.
Well, you know, what can I say? I like Jeremy Borash, and I was the biggest WCW Live fan, but you can't go out there and say things about people like that. That's like me coming out right now and making fun of freaking Davey Boy Smith. I mean, what's the point? It's offensive, it's rude, and it's just stupid. I mean, you just think about things before you do them. And for for a couple of guys that aren't exactly on the A-list of certain people in that company, I think we've been far more professional than that.
Well, anyway, TNA Impact. When does it actually start? Because, you know,
June 4th.
I forget what it is, but when does it actually start?
Starts June 4th, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that is on Fox Sports Net. But apparently, Fox Sports Net is now called different things in different areas. So it's now TNA is describing it as your regional sports channel. But it's Fox Sports Net for most of the greater United States.
Yeah, well, good luck to them there. Apparently they're going to be using a six-sided ring. So I heard.
That could be interesting, and it could be stupid.
I believe it'd probably be the first time that it's publicly, you know, on a big scale been used in the United States. Wouldn't that be?
The only place I've seen it is Mexico. I know it's used in Mexico a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, MLW were going to use it, and H2 Wrestling, the offspring of MLW as such, are going to use it. But, you know, I think the first time to be seen nationally could be a good drawing card for them if people like it. If people hate it, then you're going to want to get rid of it as quick as possible. But,
well,
I know there's one six-sided ring in the UK, but that's never really been used. So,
I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know the logistics of it, but it could bring a new dimension to wrestling, or it could just be something that they'll use a couple times, and the fans will say, I don't like it. Or, you know, even the workers might not like it. You know, guys are trained in a square ring.
I mean, the kind of guys that TNA would be using should probably be able to adapt to the six-sided ring, like the Jerry Lynn's and the Jeff Jarrett and the AJ Styles, and they've got enough experience, they've got enough of them there, you know, in their noggin to be able to adapt to it being six-sided instead of four-sided. You know, you just bounce a couple more times, you bounce enough every inch, but I suppose that would be a very naive and simplistic view of the dimensions, but
yeah, well, I'd really have to. I'd really like to be in the ring to see it and just, you know, experience how different it is, because, I mean, there's guys that talk about how different a WWE ring is compared to a WCW or ECW ring because of, and you know what the difference is, right?
and tension ropes.
Well, the tensity in the ropes is right. Yeah, there's the WWE one is more, I don't even know, elasticy, maybe more elastic. Or the actual ropes, I don't remember. But I do know that they would also complain about the size of the WWE ring. And the WWE ring is all of 2 feet long, bigger. 2 feet. I mean, that's like the size, well, it's 2 feet. I mean, it's 24 inches. That's not a big deal. You know?
Yep. Well, 24 inches could be a big deal, depending on, you know, what you're talking about. But,
you'd make a lot of money in the adult film industry.
Exactly. About 24 inches. But, anyway, but, yeah, in regards to wrestling, when it's not a terrible amount, yeah, I agree.
Okay, so,
There are some rings in the UK which are half the size of the WWE ring. And just asked one of our past guests, Shane Douglas, about that, because he worked a show in England. Which actually was one of the questions we asked him, I asked him specifically, was, are you coming to England? And he said no. But obviously he's been booked without knowing it because he did come to England. And he's actually taller than the ring. So,
wow.
You have it.
How big was the show? How big was this crowd at this show?
Oh, it's still a 100. Which is, you know, an average UK crowd.
Huh. Okay, well, that's a little odd that he has that small of a ring. But alright.
And for speaking we're carrying on the whole sort of TNA line and TNA roots. One of the TNA's non-contracted talent, but yet a guy who's used pretty much, sort of 2 weeks out of 4, 3 weeks out of 4, not often used in the tape pay-per-views, but always used on the live pay-per-views. Conan could be making his way to WWE, apparently. Apparently, he's signed, filled, and delivered, so he won't be on TNA anymore. And he's going to be doing kind of a babyface announcing kind of Funaki style role thing on SmackDown. But it wouldn't involve him wrestling too much, which a lot of people said is quite a blessing. And given some of his stuff in TNA, he's not the most nimble anymore. He's a bit lazy or whatnot, but he's been on the show before as well. He's in the archives. Just put that over nothing quickly.
Well, Conan blows up.
Yeah.
He blows up relatively quickly. He has his spots that he likes to get in, and that's pretty much all there is to him. And that's fine. He's a good worker, but I'm glad for him. I'm happy that he's going to be on a bigger show and probably making a lot more money. And obviously, there's no heat left from the Max Moon gimmick.
I can personally see it being kind of a bonus to Cat Miller situation. I think WWE is just basically taking him because Guerrero and Ray or whoever has put in the good words, and then said to him, Vince, TNA are using this guy every week. Steer him up, taking someone from their main roster. It's like, okay, then go on, if you two both like him, give me something for him to do, and I'll sign him up, and I've done so. And that's pretty much what he did with Ernest Cat Miller. He liked the fact that he could dance. That's about that. Signed him up, threw him on. Didn't really like what he was seeing, and out the door he goes. But it seems really quite strange to me that they're letting people like Canyon go. Canyon, Stanky, both left. And then they're bringing people like Conan. Nothing against Conan, because he in the past he's a very talented wrestler, and he's
WCW television champion, WCW US champion.
Exactly. He's not by any means discredited in terms of achievements and whatnot, but
Well, I'll tell you this much about Conan, and this is something that Rick said, and I'll say it flat out here. And I like Conan, and I appreciate that he gave us the interview. But there is he likes to play the victim. He likes to play the victim of race card. And bottom line is, if he tries that with Vince, Vince is just going to kick him straight out the door. Vince is not going to put up with that shit. So, Conan better tame it down now, or he's going to not make it very long there.
And then I just want to quickly throw in, completely, utterly, and totally off topic, just that sort of topic as you can be, because it's not even involving wrestling. Something I read today, apparently, there's a soccer player in the UK.
Yeah.
We call it football, you call it, soccer, whatever. I'm not going to dispute that little fact right now.
Okay.
But Paul Gascoigne, his name was, very famous, Gazza. He was at a club called Everton a couple of years ago now, quite a while ago. And new managers come in. This chap called David Moyes, a young and up-and-coming manager. He laid down the law for everybody in the dressing room before training one day, and said, you're going to do what I want you to do. You're going to, do it how I want it done. It's going to be, just basically marshalling around and setting out the principles. And he said, if anybody has a problem with it, stand up and tell me now. So, just because he's a Geordie chap, he's a nice, funny Geordie guy, Gazza. He's always up for a laugh, apparently. And, he's quickly stood up and sat down again, just as a joke. And everybody, saw the funny side of it, he's just messing about, his ground as such, except for the new manager, David Moyes, who apparently then told him to stand up again and said, bye-bye, you're sacked. So that little practical joke, he lost his job. I never knew that until today. It was very funny.
Wow.
That's harsh.
Well, it's kind of harsh, but, if WCW had that kind of management, there'd be a WCW today.
Exactly.
Sometimes I don't appreciate it when, if he's a star player, if he did that, that's kind of stupid. But if you lay down the law, sometimes it works. And, tying it back to wrestling, if WCW had done it, there'd be a WCW today. But they just got, you can do whatever you want. I'm not going to job to this guy. Well, who will you job to? Or, well, you say, no, I'm paying you. You do the job.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, get the hell out. You know.
Ooh, breaking news! Breaking news! I have a daddy long legs in my room. I'm about to attack it with a shirt.
Oh, what?
Breaking news! Breaking news! The daddy long legs is nothing.
Oh, wow. Jeremy Borash will do a column about the daddy long legs.
Fine, that bloody thing. Oh, I got it. I'm only hitting it with a shirt. Crazy. It didn't so scare me. I just don't particularly want it landing on my head.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, live on the air.
Okay. Don't get more real than that.
Yeah. Not happy now because it's daddy long legs.
Jeremy Borash is going to do a column about the daddy long legs.
Exactly. So in this report, I've been arrested for killing a daddy long legs. Age 13, 5 foot by 5 foot, 24 inches or whatever. Don't go back to that.
Oh, great. Okay, so Judgment Day, WWE Judgment Day. You want to go over that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Did you see the show?
Yeah, because I saw it in here. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
It wasn't bad.
Eddie went slightly mad.
Jesus Christ. Did you see that blade job?
Oh yeah, did you see the cut that he had on SmackDown? You know, the stitching of it.
I didn't get to see that, no.
Huge. But, yeah, no.
Well, I think Eddie knew he had to do something drastic.
And he did. So, props to him for it.
Absolutely. So let's go over the card here. You have Rey Mysterio Jr. and Rob Van Dam against the Dudley Boys in the opening match.
What's your opinion on that?
RVD and Rey Mysterio need to be sent away for a little while.
You could put the same with Dudley as well.
Yeah.
Kind of shows a bit that he's got, a fight or whatnot, but on the upcoming tour to Japan, he's fighting Jamie Noble and Funaki on the two nights in July. So I'm not too sure how they're going to progress his character in between now and then. If they the announced matches, but obviously cards subject to change. So I was impressed. I like the entrance. I like the gimmick. I like it all.
Seems like a classic Undertaker style gimmick.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Undertaker mixed with Chris Daniels.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Good point.
Alright.
I like it, but I would love to see Scott Hall come back and give this guy a razor's edge that would break his freaking back. But okay, not big and crazy about people stealing other people's finishers. But okay.
I suppose if in a world where obviously not everything can be innovative every time, you kind of have to now and again.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, not everybody's the first person to think of the body slam. So. Right, you're right. I just, when you use it that prominently as a finisher and it's that recent, well, it's fairly recent anyway. Okay.
That particular move, because it is still credited to a star who's still wrestling. But.
Right, or somewhat wrestling anyway. Next match was the Tag Team Championship match.
No, I think that next one, Chavo versus Jackal.
Chavo, yeah, horrible. And anybody see Jackie's promo picture now? I don't know what she's doing in that picture, but if they lift her breasts anymore, they're going to wrap around her face and suffocate her.
I despise the whole, Jacqueline getting the belt thing in the first place. So it was absolutely stupid. But by the same token, I did enjoy this match. It was the best way to rectify, the whole issue. But
and now you got the internet that loves cruiserweights. You got the internet that loves cruiserweights talking about Kidman and Paul London about how they should be pushed. And then I'm thinking to myself, now where are you going to push them to? A title that's now been devalued.
Exactly. But, hopefully they can give it back to Chavo or someone. Matt Cadatelli perhaps. Someone who can hold it for a long time and add value to it, because in holding it for a long time, I mean, Orton's adding value to the IC title, Triple H added value to the world title, and Chavo was adding quite a lot of value to the cruiserweight title, but now obviously that's been knocked down a couple of times, and at the same time, people holding the belt for longer, adding credibility to themselves, because Chavo, you know, he's moved up in my opinion, you know, he could be a legit contender, you know, whatever, US title or some such now. And, you know, Orton, you know, same deal there. Triple H was a big deal when Shelton Benjamin beat him, so.
Yeah.
No, completely off topic.
Yeah.
You didn't like the match, I did, and now they're going to, hopefully they'll rectify the whole Chavo's Classic as champ, you know, movement, but, oh well, that'll happen this Thursday, no doubt, I assume, but next match, as you said, as we mentioned a second ago, was the tag match of Charlie Hart and Rico against Bob Holly and Billy Gunn. Now, the thing that I thought was completely missed out on this match was just that Rico used to be Billy Gunn along with Chuck's manager.
You said that on the forums. You read that at me on the forums.
Oh, I did, yeah.
They used to manage each other and they never even mentioned it.
Yeah.
And going back to Dawn Marie and Tori Wilson, Dawn Marie killed her father. They didn't even mention that she killed her father.
I remembered the thing about Dawn and Tori. I remembered that on the night, but I didn't remember the thing about Rico managing Billy until I read it later. So I'll admit that. But I think it was a good finish, you know, the blind tag that Charlie made, and then, you know, getting them picking up the win.
I might be the only one that actually likes Rico's character.
I don't mind it. I haven't heard anything good. I think it's just a bit of a one-trick pony. In that, you know, it might have to turn him heel sometimes to keep any enjoyment in the character thing. I think, you know, Rico, Charlie going over Rico would be a good stepping stone up to maybe, you know, a feud against Chavo. You know, perhaps for the cruiserweight title if he is. You know,
I wouldn't change him heel yet. I think fans are kind of liking it.
like it, but they'll like it for about another month, I think, when they get bored.
Well, then they're gonna have to get away from the gay thing for a little while. But they're doing what they did with there's a lot of guys that did the gay character. There was, you know, in the classic times there was Gorgeous George that did it, and then there was Laz. I mean, Laz in TNA is doing it, or was doing it. Yeah, Laz was great.
I really like Laz when he was hilarious. The guy in the UK, Darren Burridge, he used to go under the name of Baxter Burridge, and he did that, you know, whole ambiguously flamboyantly gay kind of gimmick. Because, you know, they never actually allude to it. They never say, you know, he's gay. They just kind of, you know, sorry, they do allude to it. They never actually say, you know, come out and say, Rico, he's gay. They kind of say, you know, a bit.
And I guess having Jackie Gata there is kind of like to make you wonder.
That's why they dropped her surname. I just she's Miss Jackie now, so she's not Jackie Gata anymore. But
Jackie Gata. Oh, good point. I didn't even think of that. Jackie Gata. Okay.
I thought that's why you brought her up.
Oh, no, it's not. Okay. What was next?
John Cena versus Rene Dupree.
Ugh.
Did you not enjoy it?
Decent match. Just don't like either character.
Oh, I feel like Cena, and I quite like Dupree. I like Dupree as Dupree, not Dupree as his French guy. Keep him as a French person, but don't necessarily bring up every 5 seconds he's some, you know, French sympathizer. I mean, fair enough. Do that with Grenier and Conway on Raw, because that's the only thing that's going to keep them together as tag team. But Dupree's now just a French guy, so maybe he has, you know, anti-Paris comments and stuff. You know, just because he's French, as opposed to, you know, going at them and just being, you know, he's got little Fifi, his dog, and Cafe de Remy, and then, you know, going the right way, that sort of thing. And then they go, oh yeah, but you support Iraq, so you suck. It's just cheap heat, and it's been done, and it's going to be done to death, obviously, until the world is at one, and the French, good friends with the States and whatnot. So,
well, there is a lot of anti-French. There's a lot of anti-French things, and the whole thing about American boycotting French goods and everything like that. That's a hot issue, and it is cheap heat. I give you that. It was best used 10 or 12 or 13 years ago when Hogan did it with. It was Hogan against Sergeant Slaughter, and Sergeant Slaughter switched over and was working for Iraq. I mean, they got bomb threats for that. They had to change. They were going to be in the Hoosier Dome for the WrestleMania 7, and they had to change the venue because they got told that the venue would blow up.
On the spices and stuff. So that's back when kayfabe was still as it was.
I think people would still believe it if you did something way out there like that.
Yeah.
People can believe as long as you don't go stupidly out there with it. Example, Eddie Guerrero's mother having a heart attack. Unnecessary. If you just completely got away from that and told stories in the ring, people would believe it again.
I mean, like when Ric Flair did his heart attack thing.
Right.
That was believable, I think.
I believed he had a heart attack.
I still believe it. When I was, you're obviously both slightly younger and whatnot, but I still kind of thought, ooh, that's not good. But then at the end of SmackDown this week, Eddie passed out, apparently. But
in real life or no?
He did. No. Just in the storyline. But, I mean, he did the best he could with it. And, he's probably not, not a trained actor, he's a trained wrestler. And, stuff like that, I don't know, it not for a second did it fool me in thinking, oh, he's really passed out. So,
did Shawn Michaels fool you in '95?
But when the Gary?
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely was it. Completely out, they sold me for that one.
See, that didn't sell me, but okay.
Didn't it?
No, because I was wondering. I have to admit, I did wonder a little bit, but I wasn't sold on it. But I'm sure Erica would like me to say it was the greatest sell of all time, so I won't say that.
I went for that one, I did. And,
Oh, by the way, I'd like to put something up to the fans. And, before I cut you off there, last match, Eddie Guerrero against Bradshaw.
I think you don't want to talk about Booker T versus Undertaker then, no?
Undertaker versus Booker T. The bag obviously meant nothing, so why waste TV time with him going to some kind of a voodoo person if the bag does nothing? Could have extended the feud and had it like kill the Undertaker or do something to him again and have him keep coming back, and extend it so they want to use him part-time. He could still be part-time, just have like aura of things happening like they did with Kane. And then he comes back to the next pay-per-view and beats him. Instead, they just did nothing, and Undertaker won, and blah, blah, blah. Bad SmackDown booking, I expected. Whatever.
I think the match itself, if the outcome was going to be what it's going to be, then I think the match itself was well done, because it's true, it's very Booker as such, but it buried in a kind of not too bad way. The only thing that I think Will have, buried in is that he did his axe kick and then Undertaker just back at the card. That's the only thing that will bury him in that match, in my opinion. But,
well, unfortunately, that prevents him from being, in my opinion, a main event status now, Booker T. And when your SmackDown is in the state where it is, where there's no main eventers, you don't want to kill a main eventer. I think Booker should have gone over or hurt Undertaker or something with the voodoo stuff.
Just relating back to that, the Japan tour that they're doing at the Beautiful Hall in July, that's when Big Show's going to make his return. And
Vito?
I think he looks as well. Huh?
Who?
Big Show.
Big Show. Oh, I thought you said Vito.
Big Show. No, Big Show. From his surgery and that. And so he's making his return. And on the first night, it's Undertaker against Bradshaw on the first night, and Eddie against RVD and I think it's, whoever Big Show's against someone else. I think Big Show is Rey Mysterio. And then this is the current card, of course. It can change, like I said, it can change, and will change, I hope. That's the first night, battling for the title, Eddie and RVD. Then the second night, after assumedly Big Show will go over with Rey Mysterio, Undertaker will probably beat Bradshaw, and Eddie will probably beat Rob Van Dam. The next night, they've got Bradshaw, who's just lost the Undertaker, getting a title shot against Eddie. They've got Big Show, who's just returned, probably going to lose against the Undertaker. And then RVD back down and a tag match against someone or other.
Are these being filmed, these shows?
I'm not sure. I think they're probably going to be house shows that, they really talks about. Okay, fair enough. If they're just going to be house shows, they don't just put as much effort as such, because only, a set has a huge audience in Tokyo is going to see it. But, at the same time, it just reeks of poor, decision making, and it just doesn't fly. But,
Oh well. Main event was Eddie Guerrero versus Bradshaw, which is probably going to be the main event in Japan, and good match, better match than I expected. Bradshaw can work. I didn't expect it, or maybe Eddie's just that damn good that I thought that Bradshaw can work, but it's pretty good.
I was actually entertained by it, which was definitely a surprise to me. And Bradshaw did fight pretty like he said he would. What can you say? I still find that some people are just being really anti-Bradshaw, and some people on forums around the country and around the world are saying anti-Bradshaw and saying that up until when Eddie made the blade job, up until then it was a terrible match. But I don't think he was.
I think it was a good match.
It was definitely holding his own. And then it just got better and better and better. And the only problem was that Eddie cut himself and did so much that people were shocked and horrified about that, and kind of forgot the fact that he's being absolutely mullered and absolutely mauled by Bradshaw, and then he's come back to win. But when he was hulking up, I was just thinking, no, please don't do that. By doing that, you're pumping the blood around fast. You're pumping more blood out your head at it. Don't do that. Just stop quickly. Stop stuff. Win. Quick. Get to the hospital. Throw yourself up. Stop losing blood. It's cold. But because we didn't need to help, he wrestled on SmackDown a couple of days later, with some huge.
That's the shit. That's the effing problem, man. That's the problem. There's too damn many shows. You can't have a pay-per-view, have a guy get beaten half to death and expect 3 days later, or 4 days, or 5 days later, even though it's really 2 days later. But, people believe it's 5 days later. Have them expect this guy gets right back in there and he's fine. You gotta start letting these guys have days off. Raw did something. Raw did something a couple of weeks ago where Chris Benoit wasn't even there. That's awesome. That's great. If you make the champ say he's doing something else like promotional work or something like that, so he doesn't show up to Raw. This way, when he is there, it's more special. You don't have to have the world champion competing every week.
It's like when Big Show, threw cut angle off that ledge onto the floor. He did his leg, and the whole angle where he can't wrestle anymore. They did that, but he just got thrown down some huge drop. Got blood coming out the back of his head. The brain damage is real. Obviously wrestling's real, but if the storyline was a real life situation, then he could have brain damage or paralysis or anything like that. But of course, on this, Big Show is the one that that's why his word is not quitting or whatever. And Kurt Angle's back 2 weeks later, beat in a wheelchair, and he's back to his job as general manager. Tell me one person in the world who, if that really happened, is back in your job exactly 2 weeks after falling off there.
Absolutely. Well, this is the problem. There's no believability.
And Triple H getting dropped in a car to his death a couple of years back, and then being on Raw a couple of weeks later.
Yep.
A couple of bruises, just a couple of cuts before I had that 20-foot drop car first into the concrete.
Well, of course. Well, apparently, Kid Cash can take a shot from a billy club in the head from D'Lo Brown and get up 2 seconds later, as if nothing happened. Jesus.
I suppose there's always going to be, these minor, well, not so minor, I suppose.
Some of them just expose the business too much. You got to, and Bob Ryder said it, and I give Bob Ryder credit for this. He wrote a column when the Dudley Boys were powerbombing Mae Young off of things through tables. If you watch this and she comes back the next week, how are you supposed to believe anything hurts?
We've run down the Judgment Day card. Well, anything else you want to particularly talk about? Because one thing I do want to touch on just quickly before we finish.
Fire away.
Owen Hart. It was 5 years.
5 years.
On Sunday just gone. I set a reminder on my phone, just so that I remind myself so we can talk about it next time I'm here. Can't believe it's 5 years ago.
5 years.
It seems like 5 years.
Time flies, man. But I miss him, man.
It was now 7 years ago that I met him when I was in Sheffield. And I came over to the UK, and a story that I always tell when people bring up Owen Hart, I'm definitely going to tell it again, is that, I was a fan. I was 12 years of age, and my dad booked the winter, me and my friend, into a hotel, knowing that the wrestlers were going to stay there. I met them all before I went to the event, when they came back, when they were in the hotel that night, and I ended up spending the entire evening chatting with Gangrel, while my dad spent the entire evening chatting with Goldust, not even knowing that he was a wrestler. Quite funny. And yeah, in the afternoon, met Owen Hart, went out to try and get his autograph, and he said, I can only give autographs to people who are going to the show. And we said, yeah, we're going to the show, we're going to the show, we're like, it's why we're very happy. And he said, that's great. He said, give me a pen, give me a paper. We gave him a pen and paper. He said, now show me a ticket. And we don't have the ticket, because we're 12. My dad's got a ticket in the room. He said, you can't show me a ticket, you've got to prove it. So he's like, okay. So he sort of trudged away to go and get a ticket. And he ran back after us. It was like me, my mate, and a couple of other guys who didn't know. And he run back after us, run in front of us and said, it's a joke. So it was like, kind of, I'm only joking, that sort of thing. And signed their autographs, personalised it as well, like today. Terrifying, like Owen Hart. And this really shows that, his total personality. I met him once, and I got to be
ribbed on. And you got a memory that you'll always remember.
Exactly.
And I never had the honor of meeting Owen. My best friend, my best friend at one time, not my best friend, just a good friend from college at the time. Right after he died, he and I were talking, and he was saying, I'll never forget the time I met him. And he was doing an autograph show here in New Jersey, well, not here in New Jersey, but in New Jersey, where I was at the time. And he weren't supposed to sign anything that the fans brought. He was only supposed to sign the 8x10 photos, as per what the WWE told him to do. So, my friend brought a magazine with him on the cover, and he gave it to Owen. And Owen says, I'm not supposed to sign this, right? And Owen, put the thing down, leaned way out over the table, and looked his head side to side, like, who's watching us? And just signed it real quickly and handed it back to him with, the biggest, goofiest smile on his face. And, that's just the kind of guy he was. And anybody listening to the story that remembers watching Owen can absolutely picture him doing this. At least I could when I first heard it.
Yeah, definitely. I've been to WWE autograph sessions before, so I can picture it out, and I can literally, in my head, just picture him doing it just there. And I read the Blue Meaning's thoughts about his anniversary of his death. I think they were written up a couple of years ago, but I reread them today because I came across them. And he mentioned apparently that night they were going to do something with a mini Blue Blazer and a mini Owen kind of thing, or something like that was going to run that night. And he mentioned how, when a wrestler dies, came in the news, it's like the teaser, and then the blue But so many people were calling him and saying, like, you okay, kind of things, because it was Blue Blazer, and he's a Blue Meanie. He was at the pay-per-view at night because he worked a match on Heat with him and Stolzberg against Hardywood. And so so many people called him seeing if he was okay. So, but in 5 years, I came across a website that showed in pretty graphic detail about his fall, and it showed with photos where he would have walked to go from the ground up to the harnessing area, and it showed photos of him in the ring after his fall.
Oh, I saw the picture and it haunted me.
And it's not, I mean, it wasn't particularly graphic because it was taken from, like, Terrace Beaton, and it's probably a very good thing it wasn't particularly graphic. But,
I saw a picture and it was just his legs, and it just freaked me out. But, yeah, well, I mean, I miss him. I think we all miss him, and, you know, it's been 5 years. And
gone but not forgotten.
Gone but never going to be forgotten. Not as long as I'm around. I also want to send out special wishes to Dr. Death, Steve Williams, who's battling throat cancer currently. And we have him booked for an interview at some point in the future, but he's undergoing chemo and he's simply unable to speak. And, you know, anybody that wants to make fun of Doc can fight me. And I'm sure hopefully there won't be anybody like that out there. And, you know, given the column that but, you know, Doc, you know, the most stand-up gentleman that I've had to deal with in the past couple months. A most honest and polite guy I've spoken to, and I wish him nothing but the best. And check out his website and send him your best wishes at oklahomastampede.com.
Hopefully you pull through and make a full recovery, much like Bobby Heenan.
Yes. And Bobby Heenan was on Dennis Miller Live. I got to catch that. Told a lot of the same jokes that he told us. He does
like to tell his bestest jokes over and over.
Well, I guess this was because it was like the biggest field that he's going to get on national TV, and he had Dennis Miller crying, laughing. So. Yeah, it was.
Funny guy.
He was promoting his book, and Dennis Miller said, "And Chair Shots is available now." And he says, and Bobby Heenan, of course, had to come in with, you know, I've been hit in the head so many times with the steel chair that the top of my head smells like ass. Entire crowd exploded into laughter. Bobby still got it, man. You gotta love Bobby.
I got Bobby's book for my birthday. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I got it for my birthday. And when I go home, this Sunday, which will go home for the summer, finish my university course for the year, today.
Yay.
Yeah, kind of very real mood. When I go home on Sunday, I'm going to start reading that. That's one of the, the things that I've got myself lined up as presents of going home and such, along with the IWA tape that Dave Corleone so nicely presented with us.
I just still owe Mr. Corleone a MLW tape that I still have sitting on my desk, and I still have your stuff like right next to it, so I better send all this stuff. I've been horrible about sending stuff out. Well, it's Cold Gin time again. How about we play Slaughter covering a classic? This is originally performed by Kiss. This is Cold Gin. And as always, watch out for flying chairs.
Well, that's all, folks. You have made it to the end of another video here on the Wrestling Epicenter channel. If you liked what you heard, please click the like button and leave a comment telling us what you think. And consider subscribing. It helps us more than you know. Thank you.